Introduced in 1991, Wright Spirit Awards acknowledge the efforts of extraordinary individuals and organizations to preserve the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright. Awards are presented in 4 categories: private, public, professional, and special honors. Each honoree has contributed to the Conservancy's mission, which is to facilitate the preservation and stewardship of the remaining built works designed by Frank Lloyd Wright through advocacy, education, and technical services. The private category honors owners of Wright-designed houses who have rescued a building or demonstrated outstanding stewardship in its conservation. The Conservancy is pleased to honor Patricia McLaughlin for the restoration of Wright's 1906 Hoyt House in Geneva, Illinois. Since 1972, Patricia McLaughlin has stewarded Wright's 1906 Hoyt House in Geneva, Illinois, restoring the house not once, but twice. By the time Trish and her late husband James acquired the house, it had undergone significant alterations that were anything but appropriate or even attractive. The exterior front facade had lost its sheltering pergola in favor of a small, enclosed entry vestibule. A family room had been added to the rear, and the windows and stucco had been painted a glaring white. To accurately restore the front pergola, which had been removed in 1917, the McLaughlins relied on original drawings, on-site evidence, and a single surviving photograph. Returning the trim and windows to their original hues was relatively easy when compared to restoring the stucco. Dissatisfied with the quality of contractors' work, Trish and James took on the Herculean task of returning the exterior stucco to its original natural tone, doing the work themselves. The rear elevation was restored by detaching the addition and then retaining the structure, creating a freestanding, screened living area. Time had also been unkind to the interiors. The McLaughlins carefully removed greenish-blue paint from the woodwork and fireplace brick, and orange shag carpeting and flocked wallpaper to reveal hardwood floors and plaster walls. Over the course of 40 years of diligent effort, much of the house returned to its original condition, and then disaster struck. In 2012, a city-owned tree fell on a nearby power line, igniting a fire in a first-floor closet. The fire gutted the adjacent music room and caused serious smoke and water damage throughout the remainder of the house. For a second time, the McLaughlins restored the Hoyt House, this time completing additional restoration that included essential details like recreating sand-finished plaster. Since the death of James McLaughlin in 2020, Trish has continued to carefully steward the house. She is currently planning a reconstruction of the pergola, which is beginning to show its age 3 decades after its initial restoration. Trish was also an early advocate for the restoration of Fabian Villa, located within a mile of Hoyt House and notable for its 1907 Wright remodeling. For her perseverance in twice restoring the Hoyt House and her advocacy in preserving Fabian Villa, the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy is pleased to present Patricia McLaughlin with a Wright Spirit Award in the private category. The public category honors organizations or individuals who have promoted Frank Lloyd Wright's work in the public arena or have rescued a public building. The Conservancy is pleased to honor Lawrence Technological University for its stewardship of the 1940 Affleck House. Lawrence Technological University's 46-year ownership of the Affleck House epitomizes dedicated stewardship through creativity, passion, and commitment. In 1978, the house and its 2-acre lot were donated by the Affleck family to the university. The donation came with only a modest maintenance endowment, leaving the university with the burden of funding larger restoration projects on the property. In an extraordinary collaboration of multiple volunteer and university groups, and with project management by dedicated alumni, the house has been restored and preserved. A limited budget was stretched through creative partnerships with product manufacturers and contractors. However well maintained over the years, all structures eventually require attention to preserve their integrity. At the Affleck House, a thoughtful and consistent progression of repairs and restorations began in 1981 and continue to this day. The list of projects includes: rebuilding the masonry retaining wall preserved structural stability. If left unattended, this could have threatened the integrity of the dwelling. The reconstruction of the staircase leading from the carport to the floor below restored a significant aspect of Wright's design for multi-level living. The replacement of the roof and the rebuilding of the skylights allowed light, but not water, to flood the entryway. Extensive efforts to refurbish the exterior included the reconstruction of the cantilevered balcony and the repair and refinishing of cypress siding, trim, and window casings. The interiors benefited from the refinishing of the concrete floors. Both the House and Lawrence Tech students profited from the hands-on learning opportunity of restoring the original wood furniture. The house's reuse as accommodation for university guests prompted renovations including the refurbishment of the kitchen cabinets and the installation of new appliances. Less visible, but vitally important, has been the updating of the electrical system. The original crushed stone driveway had been enlarged and replaced with asphalt. The restored driveway is faithful to its original configuration and material. Additional work has included the restoration of the surrounding native woodland, rebuilding the front entry planter box, and the recreation of a missing Alden Dow designed lamp in the front yard. For setting an example of conscientious stewardship in the restoration and maintenance of the Affleck House, we are pleased to honor Lawrence Technological University with a Wright Spirit Award in the public category. The professional category honors individuals who, through architectural, scholarly, or other endeavors, have advanced the knowledge and increased the appreciation of the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. The Conservancy is pleased to honor Robert G. Bowman, Executive Director of Wright in Kankakee, for his leadership and educational endeavors in stewarding the 1900 Bradley House in Kankakee, Illinois. When Bob Bowman retired from his architectural practice in Kankakee, Illinois in 2016, he did anything but retire. Wright in Kankakee, the organization formed in 2009 to steward Wright's 1900 Bradley House, quickly tapped him to become their executive director. At the Bradley House, the executive director is in charge of everything from event planning to routine maintenance. Bob's success is due to his willingness to pitch in where needed, as well as his enthusiastic community engagement, which has garnered support for the preservation of Bradley House. One of his first tasks as the new executive director was to clear out and organize the basement. This accomplishment, plus a graphic of the Taliesin West drafting room, provided inspiration for the Bradley House's Educational Center Lab, which opened in 2019. This learning space is patterned after Wright's own Arizona drafting room. Open to 3rd through 8th graders, the lab provides hands-on experience of being part of an architectural team. The students are introduced not just to architecture, but to interior design and structural design as well. As Bob puts it, our imagination is our only limitation. The goal is not merely to teach the process of design, but to introduce students to the concept of teamwork. Bob says, "I could be the world's greatest architect and have the most beautiful drawings, but if I don't have an ironworker, a mason, a carpenter, or an electrician to build my design, who cares how great an architect I am?" The learning space has 2 sections. One has drafting tables, while the other is devoted to 3-dimensional creativity with Froebel blocks, Lincoln logs, Legos, and materials for designing stained glass. Since its reopening after the pandemic, over 300 students have experienced the lab's activities. For much of his tenure, Bob served without pay as executive director of Wright in Kankakee, because he felt earning a paycheck would deprive the Bradley House of funds that could be better used for for preservation. "I was fortunate," he said. "I had quite a career as a signal practitioner. I always tell people I never worked a day in my life. I loved what I did. I couldn't have done anything else." For his commitment to the Bradley House and fostering a new generation of designers, we are pleased to present Bob Bowman with the Wright Spirit Award in the professional category. The Conservancy is pleased to honor Sidney K. Robinson for a career as an architect, educator, and author, as well as his direct support in the preservation of Wright's work. For over 50 years, Sidney K. Robinson, architect, educator, and writer, has studied the work of Frank Lloyd Wright and used that work as a source for teaching about architecture. As a boy growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, he pored over books on Wright belonging to his architect father, and at the age of 12, he joined his parents in attending a lecture by Wright in Detroit. After graduating from Columbia University, Sid Robinson became a registered architect and went to work for Alden Dow in Midland, Michigan. This employment eventually led to the subject of his 1980 Doctor of Architecture dissertation, a comparison of Taliesin and Dow's studio. In 1983, he published The Architecture of Alden B. Dow, the first full-length monograph on the architect. Sid has gone on to publish numerous books and articles on Wright and organic architecture. With his 2023 book, Crossing Boundaries with Frank Lloyd Wright, How Ornament Led to Architecture, he continues to investigate Wright's work with a fresh eye, focusing closely on Wright's designs and words to describe the architect's choice-making process. It is as an architectural educator that Sid has made a particularly profound impact. Teaching at Iowa State University, the University of Illinois, and the Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture at Taliesin, he has used the work of Frank Lloyd Wright to teach architectural design. Working directly with members of the preservation team at Taliesin and Taliesin West, Sid developed an on-site lecture, Taliesin as Text. The goal of Taliesin as Text is similar to that of his classroom work and to his writings, to use Wright's work as a basis for teaching design. Through his writings and teachings, he has both influenced and mentored an appreciative generation of architects and preservationists. Sid has also worked tirelessly to promote, and often personally fund, special projects associated with the preservation of several of Wright's buildings, including Taliesin, Taliesin West, and Unity Temple. His direct support led to the restoration of the T-Circle at Taliesin, and he championed and funded the inclusion of live stream capability in the recent restoration of the Hillside Theater at Taliesin. It was critical to Sid that the space not just be restored, but that activities there have the capacity to reach new, remote audiences, allowing exposure to Taliesin, thereby increasing the long-term viability and preservation of the site. He is also committed to education about and the preservation of organic architecture as a whole. This includes through writing, exhibitions, and the long-time stewardship of one of the most important non-Wright organic works, the Bruce Goff-designed Ford House in Aurora, Illinois. For his long-standing contribution to the legacy of Wright through his teaching and writing, the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy is pleased to present Sidney K. Robinson with the Wright Spirit Award in the professional category. The Special Honors category recognizes individuals or organizations whose work represents a unique contribution to the preservation of the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright. The Conservancy is pleased to honor Thomas B. Hagen for preserving the Frank Lloyd Wright Aaron Green San Francisco Field Office in a purpose-built structure in Erie, Pennsylvania. Thomas B. Hagen's devotion to preservation is broad-based, preserving some of Erie, Pennsylvania's most significant historic fabric. He purchased and restored 36 commercial and residential properties in Erie's West 6th Street National Historic District, and his commitment to the district was the stepping stone leading to the restoration of Frank Lloyd Wright's San Francisco Field Office. From 1951 until his death, Frank Lloyd Wright worked in the San Francisco field office that he designed with his associate Aaron Green. It was the center of his active Bay Area practice, and projects like the Marin County Civic Center were conceived and developed in this office. After Wright's death in 1959, Green and his associates continued to use the office until 1988. At that point, it was disassembled and sold to collector Tom Monahan. In 1992, Monahan sold it to the Carnegie Museum of Art, where it was exhibited behind glass until 2004, when it was deaccessioned, packed into 27 crates, and sent to warehouse storage. And there it might have remained without Tom Hagen's intervention. In 2019, Tom purchased the office so it could be exhibited by the Erie County Historical Society at its Hagen History Center campus. This exhibit was to be housed in a purpose-built structure that was carefully integrated into the existing historic campus by architect Jeff Kidder. The restoration of the office benefited from the first-hand knowledge of Aaron Green associate Jan Novi, who worked with Tom and the History Center team to ensure an authentic restoration.
I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here in the San Francisco office of Frank Lloyd Wright and Aaron Green. It's been, probably close to 40 years that I've set foot in this office. I'd actually had a transcendental experience where I truly felt as if I was right back here in time in San Francisco and ready to step outside right into San Francisco. It's a thrilling thing, and I hope that everyone that comes here enjoys themselves. It's the best of Wright. It embodies everything he knew about in terms of organic architecture. All of the principles are here in this one space.
The current installation allows visitors to interact with the space for the first time in decades. The reconstruction of the Frank Lloyd Wright, Aaron Green San Francisco field office is the star exhibit, but Tom has additionally augmented the Wright experience with exhibits and artifacts that focus on the work done in that office. The Hagen History Center also promotes the Great Wright Road Trip, with Erie being strategically located at the midpoint of a journey for enthusiasts visiting Wright sites in New York and Pennsylvania. We are pleased to honor Thomas B. Hagen with the Wright Spirit Award in the Special Honors category for the restoration and the showcasing of the Frank Lloyd Wright, Aaron Green San Francisco field office. The Conservancy is profoundly pleased to honor the late Susan Jacobs Lockhart for a lifetime of service to the Frank Lloyd Wright community. From childhood, Susan Jacobs Lockhart was directly connected to Frank Lloyd Wright, and throughout her adult life, she personified and promoted his legacy in a way that was unique. In 2019, she wrote, "To the question, how did it all begin? I answer with a twinkle in my eye that I chose my parents very carefully." Herbert and Catherine Jacobs, Susan's parents, commissioned 2 of Wright's seminal buildings. She grew up in the first Usonian House, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the Solar Hemicycle of 1943. Meeting Wright when she was only 3 years old, not only did he become a formative presence in her early life, 20 years later, he invited her and her first husband, David Wheatley, to join the Taliesin Fellowship. Between 1958 and 2002, Susan actively participated in fellowship life in Wisconsin and Arizona. She became a member of the senior teaching faculty and mentor to many students. She was also the director of the biannual Taliesin Day Symposium and program coordinator for arts and cultural events. The 1980s saw Susan in a role of senior graphic designer for Taliesin Associated Architects, designing everything from brochures and stationery to textiles. Independently, she produced art in many media, including her own innovative hand-painted wood plate art. And she designed the Crystal, presented to each Wright Spirit Award honoree. Susan joined the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy Board in 1996, at the same time as her future husband, Neil Levine. Bringing her intelligence, enthusiasm, and energy to the board's activities, she took the reins as president in 2009. Her involvement expanded in 2011 when she led the development of the organization's new magazine, Save Wright, becoming its executive editor, a role she held until 2020. Serving nearly continuously on the board until her death in 2022, Susan co-chaired the Building Conservancy's 2014 conference in Phoenix, Arizona, and played a role in several advocacy efforts, most notably saving the David and Gladys Wright House in Phoenix in 2012. As her husband, Neil Levine, said, "She taught us all about what it means to live in the present and how to animate the world around us." For her exceptional contribution to the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright, we are proud to honor the late Susan Jacobs Lockhart with the Wright Spirit Award in the Special Honors category.